My name is Natalie Stone. I'm 31 years old, and until recently, I believed that if you built your life carefully enough, nothing really collapsed without warning. Not overnight. Not without something, some crack, some signal you could catch if you were paying attention. I work in medical records coordination. My world is built on systems, accuracy, and control. I don't guess. I don't improvise. I fix problems before they become emergencies. Or at least, I thought I did. Last fall, I moved to Columbus for a better position downtown. The apartment I found, Ashford Lofts, wasn't perfect, but it was close to work. Exposed brick, old warehouse conversion, the kind of place that tries very hard to feel charming. I was in 3C. Apartment 3B sat directly across from mine. The first night I moved in, I met Mason. He looked like the kind of man who noticed things most people didn't. Mid-30s, EMS pants, worn boots, a paper cup of gas station coffee in his hand. Tired eyes, but alert. I was struggling with grocery bags when he glanced at my door, then at 3B, and then back at me. "If you hear knocking from apartment 3B after midnight," he said, voice flat, almost casual, "don't open your door." Then he walked away. No explanation, no smile. Just that. I remember laughing quietly to myself. I thought it was some kind of dry, building-specific humor. Old pipes, weird neighbors, late-night jokes. The next morning I asked Brent, the building manager, about it. He smiled too quickly, said 3B was vacant, electrical issue, not safe to rent yet. Then he changed the subject. That should have been the first moment I paid closer attention. That night, at exactly 12:14 a.m., I heard it. 3 slow knocks. Not on my door, across the hall. I went still, sitting on the edge of my bed, listening. 3 knocks. Pause. Then 3 more. I moved to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Completely still. No footsteps, no shadows, nothing. I should have walked away. I didn't. I opened my door a few inches. Silence. But something felt wrong. Across from me, 3B's door wasn't completely still. The brass safety chain on the inside was swaying slightly, tapping against the wood like it had just been disturbed. I shut my door immediately, locked it, and turned around. And froze. My bedroom closet door was open. Just a few inches. I knew I had closed it. I stood there for a long second, forcing myself to breathe, trying to line everything up into something logical. Old building, air pressure, new place nerves. That was what I told myself. I shoved a shoe against the closet door and didn't sleep until nearly 3 a.m. The next day I found Mason near the mailboxes. "You weren't joking, were you?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. "No." "Oh, what's in 3B? "Officially," he said, "nothing." Then after a beat, he added quietly, "Don't let management tell you it's pipes." That night, the knocking came again. 12:17. Same pattern. 3. Pause. 3. This time I didn't open the door. I sat still and listened. And then I heard something worse than the knocking. A dragging sound. Inside the wall. Behind my closet. The next morning, one of my packages was missing. The delivery photo showed it had been left inside the building. Brent shrugged it off. Package theft happens. Dean, the maintenance supervisor, was standing beside him, holding a coil of cable. He smiled at me. Old buildings have blind spots. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Later that afternoon, I met June from 2A in the elevator. I mentioned the noise, half expecting her to laugh it off. She didn't. She went very still. "You're across from 3B, aren't you?" When I said yes, she hesitated before speaking again. "The last person who complained about that apartment, her name was Hannah." There was something in her voice, careful, lowered, like she didn't want the walls to hear. "She said someone was moving inside the walls, getting into apartments." "What happened to her?" I asked. June looked at the floor. "Management said she broke her lease and left town." A pause. "I never believed that." That night, I came home late. As I walked down the hallway, I saw something Brent had told me shouldn't exist. A thin line of light under the door of 3B. It vanished before I reached it. At 12:16, the knocking started again. I sat on my bed this time, phone in my hand, recording. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. Behind me, the closet door pressed once, hard enough to push against the shoe I had wedged there. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Stop opening your door." My stomach dropped. I hadn't given my number to anyone in the building except the leasing office. My fingers shook as I dialed Mason. He picked up on the second ring. "You heard it again," he said immediately. "Yes." A pause. Then, quieter, "Don't touch your closet. I'm coming upstairs." The call ended, and in the silence that followed, my bedroom light, off just seconds before, clicked on by itself. Mason got to my apartment in under 2 minutes. He didn't joke. He didn't make some dramatic face like this was a ghost story. That was what scared me more than anything. He looked at my phone, read the text, glanced toward the closet, and asked one question. "Who did you tell?" "My manager at work knows I've been tired," I said, still trying to steady my voice. "But about the apartment? Brent, Dean, June, you?" He nodded slowly, like he was narrowing down a list he already didn't like. Then he walked to the closet. I stayed near the bedroom doorway, arms folded tight around myself, feeling ridiculous and terrified at the same time. When Mason opened the closet, nothing was inside except my clothes, storage boxes, and the shoe I had shoved against the door. But the back wall looked wrong. Not obvious, just wrong. There was a raised paint line running vertically near one side, thin enough that I might have missed it if I hadn't been staring like my life depended on it. Mason tapped the wall. Solid. Solid. Then hollow. He looked back at me. "Natalie," he said quietly, "this isn't settling." At 8 the next morning, Dean knocked on my door. I hadn't submitted a maintenance request. I hadn't called Brent. I hadn't told anyone what Mason and I found. But Dean stood there with his tool bag and that same easy smile. "Brent said you noticed a loose closet panel." My skin went cold. I didn't report anything. His smile didn't change. Old buildings. People get nervous. He stepped inside before I invited him fully, crouched in front of the closet wall, pressed one hand against the panel, then stood. "Normal settling," he said. "How did you know where to look?" He looked at me then, really looked. Not confused, not surprised. Just mildly annoyed that I had asked. "You can use the resident portal for concerns," he said. After he left, Mason came over and checked the hallway before stepping inside. "He was checking whether you found the latch," he said. That sentence stayed with me all afternoon. The latch, not the crack. Not the damage, the latch. That was the day fear stopped feeling vague. It became a shape, a system, a person. I bought 2 cheap contact sensors, a small camera, and a rubber door wedge. I put one sensor on the front door and one on the closet. I angled the camera toward the bedroom just enough to catch anyone entering, but not enough to feel like I was spying on my own life. The next day, while I was at work, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the camera feed. Dean was inside my apartment. He had let himself in with a master key. No warning. No notice. No emergency. He didn't check pipes. He didn't look at smoke detectors. He didn't even pretend. He went straight to my bedroom closet. I watched him press the back wall with his thumb, low near the frame. Then he reached into it like he was feeling for something hidden. For 1 second, he looked over his shoulder, straight at the camera. Then the feed cut to black. I left work immediately. By the time I got home, the camera was face down on my bed. The closet looked untouched, except for a tiny crescent of chipped paint near the bottom edge of the panel. Brent told me Dean had entered for an emergency sprinkler issue. I asked for the notice. He said it had been posted. Where? He blinked once. Common area? I have video, I said. That was the first time his smile fully disappeared. Not because he was scared, because he was irritated. That evening, Mason came over with a screwdriver. We took off the closet shelf trim carefully, piece by piece. Under the raised paint line was a recessed metal catch. Mason pressed it. The back wall opened inward. For a moment, neither of us moved. Behind the closet was a narrow maintenance chase. Concrete floor, pipes, wiring, dust, and fresh shoe prints. The space ran behind my unit toward 3B. The air smelled metallic and stale, like old water and warm wires. 4 feet in, tucked beside a pipe, Mason found a brass key on a plastic tag marked B Storage. Beside it were a phone charger, an empty flashlight box, and a folded paper towel stained reddish-brown. I photographed everything before touching it. Every angle, every object, every footprint. Because suddenly I understood something Hannah must have understood too late. If I didn't document this, they would make it sound like nothing. The key opened a basement storage cage with no tenant name. Inside were open packages, spare mailbox keys, 2 building fobs, a stack of fake maintenance notices, and a spiral notebook. Mason didn't touch it at first. He just stared. When I opened it, my hands went numb. Apartment numbers, work schedules, package delivery times, notes written in short, ugly lines. Lives alone, night shift, dog walker Thursdays, out weekends. My name was near the back. Natalie Stone, 3C New, check closet. Under the notebook was an older phone with a cracked screen. On the back, in silver marker, were 2 initials. HR, Hannah. Mason and I called the police. The responding officer said it looked like theft and unlawful entry. Maybe stalking, depending on what was on the phone. He told us not to confront Dean or Brent. That would have been easier if Brent hadn't sent a building-wide email that same night. It was about respecting staff, about not spreading rumors, about how false accusations could damage hardworking employees. He never used my name. He didn't need to. By morning, people were looking at me differently in the lobby. A tenant named Laura texted me, asking if I was the one accusing Dean of stealing packages. A man from 1C stopped me near the elevator and said, "Management thinks you're getting worked up from living alone." From living alone. Like solitude was a diagnosis. Like fear became less real if there wasn't a man standing beside me to confirm it. That was the moment I understood how easy it is to make one person sound unstable when everyone else only has one piece of the story. 10 minutes later, June knocked on my door. She brought tea in a travel mug and an old Christmas card folded inside a plastic sleeve. "Hannah slipped these under the wrong doors last winter," June said. "I kept mine. I don't know why." Inside was one handwritten line. "If anything weird happens to me, it's not because I moved willingly." I bagged it and added it to the folder growing on my kitchen table. Photos, screenshots, the police report number, the notebook, the storage cage pictures, Hannah's card. That night, I didn't sleep in my bed. I sat on the couch with every light on, staring at the closet door like it was breathing. The next afternoon, I got another text from an unknown number. "You're in the wrong apartment, Natalie." Then another. She hid it better than this. I had told no one about finding Hannah's phone. Not Brent. Not Dean. Not even June. Only Mason. And the police. I looked toward the closet. The apartment was silent. But silence no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. By the second week, I stopped pretending there had to be an innocent explanation. I stopped trying to explain it away with old pipes, bad wiring, or imagination stretched thin from stress. Fear, when it stays long enough, changes shape. It sharpens. It organizes itself into something usable. I slept with the chair wedged under my doorknob. My shoes stayed beside the bed. My phone never left my hand. At work, I looked normal. I answered emails, ran reports, kept everything on schedule. Inside, I felt like a wire pulled too tight, one sudden movement away from snapping. Detective Sonia Alvarez was assigned to the case 3 days after we found the storage cage. She didn't waste time reassuring me. She didn't say things like, "You're safe now," or "We'll figure this out." She just listened. Then she asked for everything. The photos, the notebook, the key, the card June had saved, the timestamps, the camera footage before it cut out. She took Hannah's phone for analysis. "Most people don't document this much," she said, as she flipped through the folder I had built on my kitchen table. "They usually wait until it's too late." "I didn't feel like I had that option," I said. She looked at me for a second, then nodded once. "Good." 2 days later, she called me in. Most of what mattered was in the voice memos. Hannah had been recording herself, because no one believed her. In one recording, her voice was barely above a whisper. "He knocks first to see who's awake," she said. "If you open the door, he goes quiet. If you don't, he uses the wall." I felt my throat tighten. Sonia played another. This one was clearer. "He came through the closet while I was in the shower," Hannah said. "I heard the panel. I thought it was the pipes until I saw the light." There was a pause in the recording, a shaky breath. "Dean," she said. Just his name. Flat. Certain. The next memo mentioned Brent. Said he told her she was anxious. Suggested she stay with family. Told her she was imagining patterns. The last recording was the one I couldn't stop thinking about. Hannah sounded like she was moving while she spoke. Fast. Unsteady. "If Megan gets this," she said, voice breaking, "the spare key is in the basement. He's looking for the complaint folder. Don't trust the office." The recording cut off mid-breath. Megan was her sister. Sonia contacted her. 2 days later, Megan drove down from Dayton with a folder thicker than mine. Printed emails. Screenshots. Copies of 2 housing complaints Hannah had tried to file. "They told us she left," Megan said, sitting across from me at Sonia's office. Said she needed space. Said she didn't want contact. Her voice hardened. A week later, we got an email from her, saying she needed a fresh start. She shook her head. That wasn't her. It was too clean, too controlled. I knew exactly what she meant. Around that time, Brent slid a lease release form under my door. No penalty. Move out within 48 hours. If you feel unsafe. That was the moment everything aligned in my head. Hannah complains. Hannah gets labeled unstable. Hannah disappears. Now I find the key, the storage cage, the notebook, the phone. And suddenly, management wants me gone quietly. I didn't sign it. That weekend at 1:07 a.m., the fire alarm went off. The entire 3rd floor flooded into the hallway. People half asleep, confused, irritated. June stood beside me in slippers, muttering under her breath. Brent was near the stairwell, pretending to be on a call. Dean came down from the service stairs, sweating, even though the alarm panel showed no smoke. Mason leaned slightly toward me. He wasn't in his apartment, he whispered. When we were allowed back upstairs, something felt wrong before I even unlocked my door. The wedge I had placed under it was shifted. Inside, the apartment looked untouched, but the closet panel was open. Just a fraction. Someone had used the alarm to clear the hallway. To get inside. That was the moment Sonia stopped waiting. For 3 days, we turned my apartment into a trap. A new camera inside the closet, another above the front door, audio recording everything. Sonia stationed in Mason's apartment across the hall, lights off. 2 officers downstairs, out of sight. At 12:17 a.m., right on schedule. The knocking started. 3 slow knocks from 3B. Pause. 3 more. I sat on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, not moving, not reacting, not giving anything away. 40 seconds later, my phone buzzed. Closet sensor. Triggered. I didn't turn. I didn't breathe. On the camera later, it looked unreal. The panel shifted, opened inward, and Dean slid out of the wall, sideways, like he had done it 100 times. He was wearing dark clothes, nitrile gloves, a headlamp strapped across his forehead, keys in one hand, a flat envelope in the other. He stepped into my closet like it belonged to him, like I wasn't there, like I was just another name in his notebook. He took 2 steps forward, and Sonia hit the doorway. "Dean!" Her voice cut through the room like glass breaking. He froze. For half a second, he didn't move at all. Then he tried to step back into the wall, like he could disappear into it again. 2 officers rushed in behind Sonia. They grabbed him by the legs and dragged him out of the closet, onto the bedroom floor. The envelope slipped from his hand. My name was written on it. Inside were copies of my lease, my emergency contact form, and a blank maintenance notice already signed with Brent's name. In 3B, they found everything. A folding chair, a portable monitor connected to a hallway camera feed, stolen mail, spare unit keys, stacks of tenant files, files Brent had no business keeping. Under a loose floorboard, they found Hannah's complaint folder, exactly where her recording said it would be. There was cash, prepaid phones, and a list. Units Brent wanted Dean to turn over before lease renewal. That phrase stayed with me. Turn over. Like people were inventory. Like homes were just access points. That was the truth. The knocking was never random. It was a test. Dean used it to see who was awake, who opened their door, who hesitated, who could be pushed. If someone ignored it, he used the wall. He targeted people who lived alone, especially women, because they were easier to isolate, easier to discredit, easier to make sound unstable. And Brent made sure no one believed them. The arrest was the loudest part, but the ending took longer. Dean was charged with burglary, unlawful entry, stalking, mail theft, identity fraud, and evidence tampering. The list kept growing the more they pulled from 3B and the basement storage cage. Brent lasted 3 more days. Then he was arrested too. Conspiracy, obstruction, falsifying housing records. The building owner moved fast after that. Lawyers always do when silence starts getting expensive. At first, people in the building didn't talk much. Just quiet glances in the hallway. Doors closing a little faster than usual. Then the story broke. Local news. Tenant forums. A thread online that spread faster than management ever could have contained. And suddenly, people started remembering. A necklace that went missing after a routine inspection. A maintenance visit no one requested. A door that had been locked, but somehow wasn't. Within a week, 3 former tenants contacted Sonia. Within 2 weeks, there were more. What I had experienced wasn't an isolated incident. It was a system, and it had been running for years. The biggest shock came later. Hannah was alive. Megan found her in Asheville about 3 weeks after Dean's arrest. According to Sonia, Hannah had run, not because she was unstable, because she understood exactly what was happening and realized no one would believe her in time. Dean had cornered her in the maintenance chase one night, a screwdriver in his hand, close enough that she could feel his breath. Brent stood behind him, calm, controlled, explaining, telling her that no one would believe her because she had already been telling people about noises in the walls, about movement, about patterns. She's anxious, he had told others. She's overwhelmed. By the time she realized what they were doing, they had already built the narrative for her. So Hannah left before sunrise, with a duffel bag, a bus ticket, and no expectation that anyone would ever come looking. When the arrest made the news, Megan didn't stop searching until she found her. Hannah came back to Columbus to give her statement. Meeting her felt unreal. I had heard her voice in recordings, seen her name written in a notebook like a target. In person, she was quiet, exhausted, apologizing, I'm sorry, she said more than once, like any of this had ever been her fault. June came too. She brought lemon bars, like this was some kind of normal afternoon gathering instead of three women standing at the edge of something that could have ended very differently. Strangely, that helped. It made the room feel human again. After everything, more details came out. Dean had been using 3B and the maintenance chase for at least 3 years. Sometimes it was theft, sometimes surveillance, sometimes intimidation. Brent covered for him, kept complaints buried, reframe fear as instability, gaslight, delay, intimidate, reset. That was their system. The line of light I had seen under 3B, battery lamps, the missing package, Dean, the unknown texts, a prepaid phone recovered from the storage cage, the closet door moving after the knocking, because he was already inside the walls, waiting, watching, deciding. The reason Mason warned me the first night, he had noticed patterns. Women moving out suddenly. Dean always nearby. Brent always explaining. He didn't have proof, so he did what he could. He warned the next person. After everything became public, the building changed overnight. New management, security audits, locks replaced, access logs implemented. The illusion of safety rebuilt as quickly as possible. I didn't stay. Not because I was still afraid, because I was tired. 6 weeks after the arrest, I moved out. The owner refunded my deposit, paid for movers, and covered 2 months of rent in a new building in Dublin. New construction. Real security cameras. Solid doors. No hidden space behind the walls. The first night I slept there, no noises. No knocking. No movement in places that should have been still. Just silence. The kind that feels empty in the best way. I sleep now. That still feels like a luxury. Work got better too. In the middle of everything, I somehow managed to handle a full records audit without missing a deadline. In January, I was promoted to team lead. Structure, control, stability, the things I thought I had lost, weren't gone. They were just tested. June still calls every Sunday. She gives me updates about the building, like she's reporting from the scene of a crime that refuses to fully disappear. Mason helped me move. A week later, he asked if I wanted to get coffee somewhere quiet. Somewhere with no shared walls, no hidden doors. I said yes. We're taking that part slow, carefully, like something that deserves patience. Dean and Brent are still working through the courts. Plea deals are complicated when too many people step forward. Because that's the thing about fear. It works, until it doesn't. Until one person refuses to stay quiet. And then suddenly, everyone remembers the moment something felt wrong. That's what stays with me. Nothing in that building was supernatural. It only wore that shape because it was useful. A knock at midnight, an empty hallway, a manager telling you it was stress, a maintenance man smiling a little too calmly. Most real danger doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, reasonably, in ways that can be explained away, if you're tired enough or alone enough. So here's what I learned. When something feels wrong, document it. When someone tells you not to trust your own eyes, trust them less, not yourself less. And if someone with tired eyes and a cup of gas station coffee looks at you and says, "Don't open your door after midnight," maybe listen the first time.